The golden fields of Saturday glory. Strap on the helmet and into the huddle. It's Mr. Gridiron.
Yes, in coverage, I'm playing press. You can text, but if it ain't looking right, I'm swiping left. Next.
Boy, don't hate the player, hate the game now. Killing it, it just won't be the same now. Boy, I'm balling hard in the pain now. Boy, I'm balling hard in the pain now. Boy, don't hate the player, hate the game now. Killing it, it just won't be the same now. Boy, I'm balling hard in the pain now. Boy, I'm balling hard in the pain now.
What is up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher, Mr. Gridiron of the League Winners here. We are here for episode 3. This is another fantastic episode. We're going to have Greg Nejmeh on at 9:30. We're going to talk Accelerated Sports Ventures. He is now the president there, spent 16 years in the NFL with the New York Jets. Now we're going to talk about ASV, future of college football. We'll talk some stuff with the draft. Should be a great time. Then after him, we're actually going to have Maddy Hudak, Tulane sideline reporter. She's going to be here at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. Originally, we had some times mixed up. Thought she was going to be coming in at 8. Instead, it's going to be at 10. She was supposed to be here on Wednesday's show, but she had something come up. So now we got a double whammy of a Friday. Love to see that. A little bit of a long show, but this is a live show for everybody watching. So make sure to click that like button if you feel free to do so. You can leave a comment as well, and we'll get right back to you on the show live on air. If you leave a comment after the show has ended or you watch this on a playback and want to leave a comment, give me 24, 48 hours, and I'll make sure to get back to you with a comment of my own. Make sure we respond to you. I appreciate everybody. This is live on all your favorite platforms as well. We're on X/Twitter. We're on Facebook. And we are also on YouTube, and we're also on your favorite podcast selections at Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and on iTunes. I think I already said iTunes, but I mean iHeartRadio. So that just shows where my mind says that. Like I said, we got a great show today. We're going to talk about the college football playoff brackets. That supposedly is getting looked at. They want to move it up to 24 teams. So we'll talk about what that scenario could look like, what would be the best case scenario. I'll also give a shout out to my man Dan Tortora because me and him have a very similar take on the playoff bracket. If they do go to 24 teams, not sure if the NCAA is going to take our advice, but it's probably the most fair, if we'll say it like that. We'll also talk about the probationary period with FCS schools reaching potential playoffs and bowl games, that no longer being an issue as well. We're going to get onto that in a little bit as well. And we're also going to talk about JKS and some interesting stuff going on with people trying to steal Jaron Kawave Sungapula-Tele from the Cal Golden Bears. Or I don't want to lose the term collusion and things of that nature and tampering, but there's some very interesting stuff there. So I'll get onto that. But before we do that, we're going to start with the college football playoffs because there's been talks of them moving to 24 teams. And if they do move to 24 teams, what that could potentially look like. Now, because the NCAA cares, I don't want to be rough because a lot of fans care about good football, but they also care about money. So they're going to take the more marketable teams if they do it this way, most likely. However, there is a 24-team bracket where it makes sense, and it allows for all the conference championship winners to get their seat at the table as well. Now, I'm going to pull up. We're gonna see what this looks like, and we're gonna pull up our own bracket here, and I'll show you what exactly a 24-team playoff would look like if we go by last year's standings and everything of that nature. So we'll bring it up here. I just want to make sure it shows up good on the screen. I might go full screen on this. That might be easier for you guys to see it. Now, this is a little bracket thing, bracketology, whatever. So this has 24 teams. So it would look like, ignore that. If this was what, it would look like from each side. And we're going to go through, and we're basically going to fill out the bracket based on how it could potentially look from last year's standing. So and for those listening, we're talking about the 24 team college football playoff change that they're thinking about doing. For me, this is how I would like to have the bracket set up from using the results from last year. This is going to be what my potential 2014 bracket would look like. And this would include all 10 conference championship winners, which is what I believe if they do go to 10 or 24 teams, they should add all those conference championship winners, make those games mean something more, bring more life to the conferences and to football competition in general. I think it would also be just great for football in general because it would allow kids to, go to some of these smaller schools with the anticipation of, hey, we do get a chance to get into the big game. Now, with that said, we're going to take a look at what this would look like, and we're going to use last year's standings. So we'll start with the initial college football playoff teams that were selected in last year. They're going to fill up the first, let's see, one, give me 1 second, 2, 4, 6, 8, so 12 teams, right? So we're going to go, let me type this in here. Team 1, well, team 1 on the bye is going to be Indiana is number 1. We're going to have Ohio State at number 2. They're going to have the bye on the other side of the map, the other side of the board here on the bottom. And let's see, number 3 would be Georgia. So we'll have Georgia, another team on a bye. The 4th team is going to be Texas Tech, and we saw how that actually ended up playing itself out. Now, 8 of these teams, I believe, are going to get byes, if I'm not mistaken. So 4 would actually have to play, but they'd be the higher seeded teams in the brackets. If we go to number 5, that would be Oregon. We'll have Oregon in here. Team number 6 would be Ole Miss. Ole Miss, right? Team number 7, and this is just based on the rankings that they had them at. But that actually made the playoff. Number 7 would be Texas A&M. We have number 8, that would be Oklahoma. Number 9 is Alabama. And Alabama would be, as we see here. So if we look here, on the one side of the bracket, on our left side, we have Indiana, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas Tech getting byes on the left side of the bracket. On the right side of the bracket, we have Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. So 2 Texas teams in the final bracket bye, or in the quarters. Is that quarters? No, ignore me. And the group of 16-ish, we'll call it bye. So they get the bye there. Their first team that will actually have to play in the first round is going to be Alabama. And if we keep going down the list there, 10, the next team would be Miami. So we'll have Miami, Florida, and they would face what would be the 23rd seed right now. So we keep going. 11 didn't make it, if I'm not mistaken, because who was that? Give me 1 second. I apologize. 11 was Notre Dame and BYU. Those teams didn't make it. So we have to, if we're adding conference, see, this is where it gets a little interesting because James Madison and Tulane were given the bids as conference winners, but would they get the bid in a 24 team? For this exercise, it becomes tough, right? Because do we award from best record or do we award from conference winners, right? So the best record teams, they should all get byes, right? I think that's only fair for at least the first 8 teams. And then this is where it gets tough because do we do that? Actually, we might have to. We should, if we're going to do 24, we're going to have to give the conference winners something to actually look forward to. So we'll go from best conference championship record winner and going down. So Tulane was at 11-3. Obviously, Duke was 9-5. Texas Tech doesn't count. BYU would be second. We'd have Conference USA's 10-4. We have the MAC at 10-4 and 2, which, by the way, who from Western Michigan just putting work in the MAC. We have UNLV did not win it, but they had the 10-4. I think it was Boise State who ended up winning it again at 9-5. The SEC, that one, and then James Madison 12-2. So James Madison would actually get that higher seed at 12-2, and then we would have Tulane there at 10. The only difference is in this bracket with the 24 teams based on, if we go on record-wise, and we had the conference championship winners first based on record, those guys would get the next slate of things. And then we would have to go through the rest of the conferences based on record if we do it like that. So Kennesaw State was a 10-4. Western Michigan was also a 10-4. And I think, okay. So in the ACC, let's see, Western, we'll do Kennesaw State. This is where things will get a little, this is, I mean, I'm not going to lie. This is where I might lose some people, right? Because why would you have Kennesaw State, Western Michigan as high seed teams? So do we scrap that out? And plus to get a home game, which honestly would add some life, which, you know, I'll keep it for right now, because my justification for this is that the lower seed teams who won their conference should get a home game, because not only would it add some life into the community where these teams are playing in, but it would just add revenue. It just adds to the lore of college football, in my opinion. That may sound a little crazy, but you know, who knows? And then we have Texas. Okay, so in the ACC, Duke ended up winning that. They were at a 9-5. Give me 1 second here. I believe Western Michigan won it, right? 2025 conference championship football. I just want to make sure that it was them. Western Michigan, yeah. They defeated Miami. Okay. I had a feeling, but I couldn't necessarily remember. So then we'll add Duke, and then Boise State would be the final two. So I'll add Duke, and then Boise State would be the final two. So the way this bracket is looking so far is we have Indiana, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas Tech getting the bye week on the left side of the bracket. On the right side of the bracket, we'd have Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Ohio State on this side of the bracket. And then the rest of the way we would go would be based on the top 25 rankings, right? So that's how the rest of that would go, because this still gives you 10 at-large bids. That's why I am a proponent of giving the conference championship winners a home game, either a home game or a bye. They deserve one or the other, right? So if they do get the home game off the rip, that's perfect. You know, otherwise they get the bye week. So the next two teams that would be on here, it would actually be Alabama and then Miami. So Alabama would be the 15 seed here. Miami would be the 16 seed, but these teams still get home games. So that is the positive there. Like they would get a home game because they would still fill out that side of the bracket, right? Miami would get the home game. We give James Madison, like all these teams right now would get home games. So it'd be Miami, James Madison, Western Michigan, and Duke would all get home games on the left side as being the higher ranked teams. And on the right side, it'd be Boise State, Kennesaw State, Tulane, and Alabama getting home games on their side of the bracket. Now, filling out the rest of that bracket is going to be, we'll have Notre Dame on there. Notre Dame, BYU. Then we'll have Texas, Vanderbilt. I believe it's Utah. Yep, Utah, USC. And then we're just filling out the rest as what their final rankings were. And then we have Arizona, and I believe Michigan is the final one that would be there. Now, just as a reminder, the teams from 15 to 24, those final 10 at-large bids, those are going to be just based on the AP ranking. Like, that's what I'm basing it on right now. Whether or not that becomes something different, you know, who knows? That could be up to interpretation. But right now, this is how the first round would look. And to be honest, some pretty good matchups here. I'm not going to lie to you. Notre Dame, Miami, off the rip. Great matchup in the week one game, or in the first round of the playoffs. That would be fantastic. James Madison versus Michigan. I think that'd be another fantastic game because James Madison notoriously sells out at their stadium. And then not only that, Michigan brings massive amount of fans, massive amount of money. A lot of people would actually watch that game. Now, we'd have Utah and Western Michigan. Utah could, not necessarily get a punching bag in Western Michigan. I think this would actually be a decent game to watch, where Utah isn't necessarily a powerhouse. Obviously, they'd be the 21 seed here. And Western Michigan, despite them playing in the MAC, is a good football team. Not saying that they would win this, because I think Utah would win this game, but it would be a good match. We have Duke, Vanderbilt. Duke's a sneaky team. Vanderbilt's a sneaky team. I think this would also be another good match to have. These would be the left side first round playoff bracket matchups. So I would really like to see those. On the other side, we have Texas, Boise State. A little bit one-sided. Obviously, this side is actually a little bit worse, I guess. I think Texas would really beat Boise State, especially in Boise. But that being said, it being in Boise could give them a run for their money. Kennesaw State hosting USC. You would hope that USC would win this game, but who knows? I mean, I think USC would win this game, but being in Kennesaw State's been proving people wrong for a while now. It'd be interesting. Arizona at Tulane. If we had the Sumrall team on there, I think that would be a very fascinating matchup as well. And Alabama BYU would be the rounding out of the first round of the playoffs in that game. I don't necessarily hate it. I like the left side bracket a little bit more, the way that matched up based on the AP. And like I said, this is just based on AP rankings, the final rankings that these teams would have had in the AP. So anybody tuning in, we're talking 24 college football playoff spots. They're talking about moving it to 24 teams. If they do, my idea would be to add the 10 conference championship teams. However, the top 8 seeds overall would get a bye week. So going off of last year's rankings, those 8 teams would be Indiana, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas Tech on one side. And then on the other side, we'd have Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. Now, the rest of the conference championships and the top 2 other highest seeds, at least based on last year's rankings, they would get home games in week 1. Those teams with home games would be Miami, James Madison, Western Michigan, and Duke on the left side. And then on the right side, we'd have Boise State, Kennesaw State, Tulane, and Alabama getting home games on the right side. Filling out the bracket for the final 10 or the final 8 at-large bids would be Notre Dame, BYU, Texas, Vanderbilt, Utah, USC, Arizona, and Michigan. That's how the top 24 would look based on 10 conference championship winners, the 10 at-large bids, and then the 4 top seeds as well. That's how that would look. And honestly, it becomes an interesting matchup because who knows who wins this game at Notre Dame and Miami in the first round. That's, a rematch, which would have been fantastic to see. And then they faced Indiana next. So we could have potentially got, a game that could have gone in the finals in the second round of the playoff. Then we have James Madison versus Michigan. We'll say Michigan wins that game, then it's Michigan-Oklahoma. If I'm not mistaken, that is another rematch. Then we have Utah and Western Michigan. Utah would likely face Oregon in that game. And then we'd have Duke and Vandy, and who knows if Vandy pulls that out, Duke pulls it out, but they'd get Texas Tech in the next round. On the other side, we have Texas, Boise State. Say Texas wins that, then we have a big Texas-Georgia game in the second round of the playoffs. Big game. We have Kennesaw State, USC. Assume USC wins that game. Then we have a very fascinating matchup with one of Kennesaw or USC against Ole Miss in the second round. Going forward, we'd have Arizona versus Tulane. I think Tulane could have pulled that off potentially in the Jon Sumrall era. Then we'd have Tulane versus Texas A&M. Pretty fascinating matchup, honestly. And then the last game in the very first round would be Alabama BYU. Have to assume Alabama would win that game, especially in Tuscaloosa. So then they would go and face Ohio State in the second round, which would be another great game. And the reason why this is my proposal out of all of them, we'll back out a bit and see if you guys can see the whole thing here. I'm not sure how well it puts up on the screen there. I think you guys should be able to see most of it pretty well. The reason why I don't mind the 24 team playoff as well is because it also allows, if the NCAA was smart, what they would do is add these to the bowl games. where most of these, there's something like 40 bowl games. Let's see how much there would be right now. There's a lot of bowl games, man, if we're being honest. The first ones start this year on December 12th, and the first round of the college football playoffs this year start on December 18th. And then we have some gaps. Like we have so many gaps. I mean, a lot of these don't even have dates yet on them. So a lot of them, we just have certain bowl games that have already been penciled in, and then we have first round games. But if they start the first round games in that December 12th area, we'd have, let's just double check here. So we start all these first round games December 12th. Round 2 would be December 19th, right? We give it a week. Round 3 would be on December 26th, right after Christmas. You could even push that back to 27, 28. I mean, plus, like this is the thing. It would give a lot of kids time to spend time with their families on Christmas too, because there are some bowl games that are not there. If they just move the bowl game dates to 26th, which would be the next one, you could even have that from the 26th to the 28th. You know, however they want to do that. That would be round 3 of the playoffs. So that would have us here already. And then that would be the quarterfinals. Then we'd have the semifinals. That would be on that. I guess you could say that would be right after. I mean, that would technically mess up the January 1st games by putting it on the 2nd or the 3rd. But for all sakes and purposes, let's just say we put it from 1 to 3. You want to give kids a short whatever for money purposes, however you want to do it, that's fine. And then you can take the 2 weeks off, because I'm pretty sure they play the championship on the 25th anyway, to have the game, and it would still line up perfectly. This is the thing, it would line up absolutely perfectly. The bowl games wouldn't even change. You would just add that. So let me pull this away. Let me get this out of here. Oh, sorry about that. So if we did that, first round of those playoff games that we just mentioned would be starting at December 12th, which is when a lot of the bowl games first start. I believe this year it is the Cricket Bowl. That's the Cricket Celebration Bowl, which is the HBCU, MEAC, and this first SWAC. It's a Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So that's December 12th. You can have the first round December. So that's when, these bowl games start to happen. We could have that on December 12th, have the first round of the playoffs be December 12th. The next round of the playoffs wouldn't happen until December 19th, which, you take away. Technically, that would be when the first round starts now, because this year, the first round of the playoffs starts on December 19th. If we do the 2014 bracket, this is where we have the first round of the playoffs just a week before, and the second round would be on that December 19th timing. Round 3 would be on the December 25th, 28th area. We can set it up however they want to, but round 3 is around Christmas time. We get some of the bigger bowl games there. It ends up going out nicely. And then you can have the next round 4 of the playoffs, could be that January 1st to etc. You could even move round 3 until it falls on that December 31st to January 1st date where they want the bowl games. So we can change that right now. So it'd be first round of the playoffs December 12th. Second round would be December 19th, where the first round actually starts right now. Third round of the playoffs would be December 31st to the 1st. So that would be the that'd be the quarterfinals. And then the semifinals could be that January 12th, etc., which would give them 2 weeks to have the finals on January 25th, which is when they're having the finals for this year. So the 2014 bracket actually makes sense from a timing perspective if they do it and start it when they need to. If they start it on that week before and go from the 12th, very easy stuff. If they start the second round on the 19th, which is when they're starting it this year, also I think that becomes pretty straightforward, right? And then they have the third round, the quarterfinals. They can have the Rose Bowl, some of these other big games. If they don't want to move dates, they can do that. And then they'd have the semifinals January 12th. and then the actual final is January 25th. That's just assuming that they want to do it that way. Now, knowing the NCAA, what's probably going to happen instead, like the 10 conference championship winners aren't all going to get in, and it's more going to be like, similar to where we have it now, where 3 or 4, maybe, the power fours all get in, and then we'd have maybe 1 or 2 of the group of 6, the non-autonomy schools, getting in. That's likely to see how it happens in the NCAA right now, at least in their minds. I don't think we'll end up seeing any non-autonomy schools get too much love for the playoffs. When they move to the 2014 bracket, I don't think we'll see a lot of those. But if they want to make it better, I mean, this is my viewpoint, and if you agree with me, feel free to comment. I don't mind. In my opinion, I want to see more diversity and parity in college football. I like when the underdog wins. I like when the underdog, they don't even have to win, but I like when the underdog has a chance. Even when they just have a chance, it means a lot to me to see. And it's good for so many small schools. It's good for so many players too, because you got to think in this format where we do have the 24 teams with 10 conference championship winners in the game, right? They get a shot in the playoffs. If you give those teams a shot, not only does it allow more incentive for players to go to those schools going forward, but it also increases the markets there. It increases the markets there, increases money, it increases revenue. Now, they may not see it that way in the short term, because in the short term, that's not going to be the case. In the short term, it makes more sense to go to the Tuscaloosa of the world. I mean, I'm just saying, if Alabama's probably going to be a consistent team in the playoffs, but they would prefer to have a team like that in there all the time, as opposed to the Central Michigans of the world and things like that nature. Also, so if we go back to my point, I think it'd be great for the small schools. It'd be great for the players. It would be great for college football, right? And the purity of that is college football. It'd be great to see a 2014 playoff include the 10 conference championship winners, including the non-autonomy conference championship winners, because it allows for extra markets. It allows for players to want to go to some of these other schools. It allows for more parity in the league. And it also adds for great stories, right? Like how insane, like we see how crazy College Game Day is for some of these places that never receive College Game Day. Imagine how crazy it would be to host a college football game there, a college football playoff game. The communities there would go crazy. It would add tourist attractions. It would open up people to traveling to different locations. It would just create better opportunity for the sport in general than just giving, and I don't mean taking it from Bama, but just giving Bama, an auto playoff bid because they're Bama. Not like I said, nothing against Bama. If they win the games and deserve to be there based on the criteria, they deserve to be there. But if we're just going to if we're just going to go straight to the AP polls for every single team, that's where I'm like, man, really? Is that what we're going to do here? Because if that's the case, why would teams play conference championship game? Why would some of these other schools play? And on the other hand, why would some of the Power 4 schools even bother to play some of these other teams? Because if they lose, especially like in a conference like the ACC, where I think ACC is probably the closest conference to true parity. I mean, the SEC has some good teams. The Big Ten has great teams. Big 12 has good teams. But the SEC is very competitive almost all the way down. Obviously this past year there was some pretty bad. I mean, Syracuse was awful. I know, I got to witness it firsthand. Boston College wasn't great. Tech and UNC weren't great. And obviously Stanford, Florida State. But they had a lot of teams. I think it's 10 teams, 3, 6, 9, 11 teams that had at least not, that were in the top half of the top half of the conference. Didn't mean to swear. I apologize. In the top half of the conference, that one blurred it out. I apologize. But as opposed to some teams and they have a lot of teams. They have 17 teams, man. As opposed to, let's see, the Big 12 is 3, 6, 9. That's 10. They only have 10. The Big 10 is almost just as bad. Some teams squeak their way to 7 wins. But when it comes to the top half, just look at this past year, right? The ACC had multiple teams still alive for the conference championship game going into the final week of the season. You just don't see that in many other conferences, especially nowadays. The American Conference had some interesting stuff too between North Texas, Tulane, Navy, and South Florida. Even East Carolina had a shot there for a bit. But other than that, you don't see it. The Big Ten was basically Indiana and Ohio State to lose. Only was it 3, 4, 5 teams had 7 conference wins. And they have a lot of those wins because they had an 0-9 team in Purdue and 2 1-8 teams in Maryland and Michigan State. Rutgers and Wisconsin 2-7. That's when we're talking power conferences, those names don't necessarily. I haven't been pulling their end of the weight. Whereas I feel like in the ACC, it's just a lot closer. There's a lot fewer teams that have really bottomed out, and some teams that people thought were going to bottom out, like the Wake Forest of the world, even NC State, Georgia Tech. Nobody thought Georgia Tech was going to do well again. After SMU's down start to the season where they lost to I think it was Baylor and I believe TCU. They ended up bouncing back and they ended up winning a lot of games in a row. They ended up going 9-4 in the season, 5-1 at home. And one of those games was a little controversial. So I just think that the ACC is in a very fascinating place in terms of where it is competition-wise. So I would like to see teams like that get a chance more than just your average, Big Tens of the world. And that's where I think that when it comes to a 24-team playoff conversation, that's why I think that, sure, we can have the autonomy schools get their conference champions in there. That should be given, right? But I also think that all the other 6 conference champions should also get in there. Maybe that changes a little bit with the Pac-12 now, but at the same time, when we're talking playoff and the best of the best, how can you kind of leave conference championship winners out? Why would it, and this goes back to the point I was making, why would certain schools plan to play other schools if they're going to get penalized for winning or losing? Why, if I am in Alabama, why would I go and schedule a Western Michigan of the world if it doesn't help my rankings? It becomes interesting, and there's a double-edged sword to that too, where if some of these schools are getting added to the playoff, if we do add some of these championships or champions to the playoff from the non-autonomy schools, does that change their standing in the mind of the general public? Does that change the perspective from the people who are voting in the AP polls? That's my biggest question, is if, and this is a big if the NCAA allows some of these smaller school teams to get in, which also, like I said, big if, I don't think it's going to end up happening, but if it does end up happening, what does that look like? And does it allow for some of these, how would that transform college football? Because another aspect and a reason probably for part of this change and discussion of change now, I think that, listen, I think this is the last year we may see 12 teams in the playoffs. Let's just, keep that in mind. There's a good chance this is the last year, and we see at least 16 teams next year, or potentially 24. They might just go straight to 24. Now, a big reason why some of that's being discussed is because there have been rudimentary talks, down at the surface levels about expanding college football into having a super league. This is not conspiracy either. This is a real thing. The super leagues have proposed a breakaway model by the top television markets elite programs, and investor backing. It's a bit, and what that is right now is they're talking about potentially 70 to 80 teams. With a two-tiered kind of system, it'd be bypassing the NCAA. It'd be functioning as a professionalized feeder system, basically, for the NFL. I guess, I don't know if it's called Project. They have a bunch of different names for it, and this is published by, the Sports Journal and CBS. I mean, I'll bring up the article from CBS for specific purposes. This is by Tom Fornelli of CBS in the offseason, and this is, this is from this year. This is March 13th, 2026. And this is where it gets, a little fascinating, because this is something that they want to have happen. How you're supposed to get 138 schools with their personal interests to agree on everything. Well, this is where it gets very interesting, because SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, and this is from the article, was on Paul Feinbaum's show discussing the topic, and Sankey doesn't think it's a good idea. He doesn't dismiss it. And this is, like I said, this is something that's been talked about a lot now. Support for the Super League, it's probably not here yet. I would probably give it about 4 or 5 years, but it's just a matter of time until it happens, or things want to change. That's where it gets a little interesting. And right now, if any school wants to leave, they have to pay a massive amount of sum of money. Do they do that now and pull away where that money becomes kind of on a smaller scale, or do they wait? That's one of the biggest fascinating aspects of it. And it's one of these things where, like I said, it's been talked about for a while. I just Googled it and I pulled up an article where they're already talking about it. That's not me being a conspiracy theorist. That is me proving that, it's very likely to happen. And it's not really becoming too subtle either. The way right now, probably the biggest area where it's not happening yet, the only reason is probably money, right? So starting this year, the Big Ten and SEC will collect close to 60% of all college football playoff revenue. In the ACC, the Big 12, and the rest of the non-autonomy schools split that other 40%. Now, the tiered structure is basically already, it's already created. And it's actually pretty similar. This is from an article from the Sports Journal from Aaron Taylor. He actually makes a great point, is that the tiered structure the financial structure is exactly like the Premier League created before its breakaway, which is very fascinating. Big Ten and the SEC are already kind of moving like super leagues already, which is what he states as well. Their existing TV deals put them in a different financial universe, says Taylor from the Sports Journal. And new governance models are being discussed and implemented already. And we're kind of seeing that happening already, from autonomous operations, football-only rules boards, separate NIL and agent oversight. And we're seeing a lot of third-party. This is actually fantastic, because we're going to have Greg Nejmeh on, and he works with a third-party NIL firm that helps construct rosters for school, helps them figure out that situation, especially with the transfer portal and things of that nature. So we're already seeing steps in that direction take place amongst programs, and amongst not just big programs, massive programs either. Like, yes, the Penn States of the world are doing that. The Utahs of the world are doing that. But also, it's like the Sienas of the world are doing that. There's a lot. The antitrust pressure makes breaking away almost necessary as well, because there's kind of like, with the revenue sharing, the way things are now, rev share is basically like a cap, a player salary cap. And now that we have private equity in play with conferences, like we saw of Utah, working with private equity, it's happening in the Big Ten as well. The sport is basically already on a professional-esque level. And that's going to start to require limits. I think that's why we're seeing that 5-year proposal being drawn out. We talked about that on Wednesday's show. That's also why I think that's being drawn out. But, not just the limits, but the contracts, which are just, we've talked about that a little bit there. cost controls and collective bargaining, which we're going to start probably seeing that under the current way the NCAA is working. They can't really do any of that without being risked in a lawsuit, right? But if they separate themselves from the NCAA and make it, like a pro-ish league, that changes things dramatically, right? And we're already getting to a point where the Big Ten and the SEC are making the most money. They want guaranteed money and they want postseason control, right? Like they want to push their teams into the playoffs. This is when we talked about the 2014 playoff system. I wouldn't necessarily mind it, but we're in an area where 24 teams likely just means more teams from the SEC and the Big Ten rather than getting conference championship winners in there. And even the TV rights, like we talked about the Premier League stuff that Taylor mentioned, and he even mentions that the TV deals are getting very similar as well. And it's just, we're getting into this perfect storm as things continue to unfold the way that they're forming, that we're likely to see a Super League-esque kind of thing happen sooner than later. And that's where things become, very interesting, I guess I'll say, because when we do end up creating a 70, 80 team league, what does that structure look like? How does that differentiate from the rest of college football for the teams that don't get selected into this exclusive club that they want to have it as? That's when questions need to start being asked, and depending on how things go, does it really make a difference of the way that we're looking at things? Like how different do things become? Does it change the way that the current trajectory we're on is going? Like how does it change? It's questions that need to be asked, but we don't necessarily have the people in place right now who can handle it in the right manner. That's why we're seeing such a big jump in certain things happening, because I don't know if the current people in the NCAA I don't think they expected things to change the way they were. There was a big good old boys club for a while, and now the good old boys are getting kind of replaced by a whole different club, right? Where money in college football is now a much bigger thing than it ever was, and we're starting to see these third parties come in and start to, in these other investment firms and things of that nature, start to see their opportunity to not just make money of their own, but also increase the opportunities in sports. The ad revenue is insane. The amount of money that's going into college sports and college athletics right now in general is pretty insane to think about. So, I don't know if the NCAA is properly prepared for that. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier in the week. Now, when you are talking about creating a super league, that's when I don't know if the NCAA is prepared for that. I don't know if they're able to conduct that because of what that would mean. That would kind of mean that super league would have to be a feeder system kind of thing for the NFL. Because like we just mentioned, like Taylor mentioned in the Sports Journal article, it would lead to legal problems like very quickly. And that's not something that a lot of these institutions want to deal with. I mean, right? Why would you want to deal with that? I know I wouldn't. So when you're thinking about that and you're looking at the context of a lot of stuff that's happening right now, it's only a matter of time before we see a super league kind of play out. And that's all kind of leading back to the point. The reason for a potential 24 team playoff is because a lot of these institutions want to see if that kind of step is realistic. And what happens to the sport of college football once that occurs, I don't know. Once the Super League becomes like a realistic thing, we're talking probably 5-ish years from now, that's when things could get so insanely different that the sport might not even resemble itself. We might be into a whole different kind of area and space that we haven't been, privy to before. So it's all very fascinating to see how it's all shaking up. And I can't wait. On one hand, somebody who covers the sport, I can't wait to see how it evolves, and I look forward to seeing a lot of the things and opportunities, especially on the storytelling aspect side and things. That, on the other hand, I'm very concerned about the way certain things are going. I don't want to say ineptitude, but I want to try to be nice to people in power because I don't know the complete inner workings, so I'm not going to pretend. But I don't know if they're necessarily have all of the right people in place for the way that the landscape's shifting to be able to contain what's potentially inevitable, especially as we do see some of these other third parties start to come in and put big amounts of money into programs because they're able to now with certain rule changes, which I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Private equity can be good. It can also be bad. Just depends on who's doing it, why, and how. And if there's no way to potentially govern it the way that they need to, then that could be a problem for the NCAA going forward. Otherwise, we have to kind of look at it with, a kind of positivity. Now, like I said, I am going to feel pretty bad once that split, because I'm very fascinated to see what that split looks like after the fact. What teams go. Like I said, when they talk about this, it's like a minimum of 60-ish teams in this Super League that would go to about 80. I've seen even 100 mentioned. I don't think it would end up getting that high, logistically speaking, but I do think 50, 60, 70, 80 is realistic. What happens to those other teams though? How does that affect the playoffs and bowl games? Because if we look at things now, bowl games aren't even doing as well as they used to, and that's I think that's also an issue because of who they put in charge for certain games and certain teams. But that's for a different episode. We'll talk about that probably next week. That might be a good, interesting way to put that next week. I'll probably have to combine that into how to save the bowl game system by combining it with the college football playoff system. So maybe a little repeat, but I think it'd be fascinating. With that said, I got to wrap that up. But with that said, this is a live show. Make sure you guys are clicking that like button, please. I do appreciate everybody who's doing so. Like I said, this is a live show. I'll repeat that again. And so if you guys do leave a comment, I'll get back to you. You guys can ask questions. You can leave comments, concerns, anything of that nature. I'll make sure to get back to you. If you do it after the show ends, give me 24, 48 hours. I'll make sure to get back to you. And the show is live on all of your favorite platforms. You can find it on X/Twitter. Make sure to hit that like button, retweet the pod and show. I'll be very appreciative of that, and leave a comment. You can also find it on Facebook. You can share it to your friends, family, share it to your groups. If they love college football, they'll love Mr. Gridiron. And if you are on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. Completely appreciate everybody. You can also find this podcast on where you find all your podcasts, on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon. We're there. We're here. We're live. So I might have to bring in a number to call in for some of the people who aren't on these social media platforms, because we do have some listeners on the other platforms. I may have to bring that in at some point during the show. I'm going to have it on the ticker here next week. We'll see. But with that said, there are some other stuff that I wanted to talk about, kind of in conjunction to what we just talked about with the college football playoff. And this is actually reported by Ross Dellinger. I think this was last night. Yeah. And I'll put this up on the screen for anybody to see it, and I'll read it for those who are just listening in as well. Give me 1 second here. All right. This is from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. He also contributes for On3. The NCAA Football Oversight Committee today, so this is on May 7th, 2026. That was yesterday. They moved forward legislation to eliminate the 2-year postseason probationary period for transitioning FCS teams, sources tell Yahoo Sports. The D1 cabinet now must adopt the change. If adopted, Sacramento State and North Dakota State would be bowl eligible in 2026. So Sac State and then North Dakota State, they have gone from the FCS to the FBS entering the 2026 season. For those who aren't aware, if your team is from the FCS and goes into the FBS, you have to wait before you are able to play in bowl games. That legislation, now there are some exceptions to the rule. If actually, like this past year, if a team opts out of a bowl game, which teams have been doing that, which is why I think the playoffs should be a part of the bowl games. We'll talk. I'll save that one for next week. But teams have opted out of bowl games, or teams just are in the playoffs and don't play in the bowl games. If they're running short on bowl game teams, some of the committees will bring in teams to play in bowl games. Just look at the Delaware Blue Hens this past year under Ryan Carty, first year in the FBS. They were invited to a bowl game and they won the bowl game. Second team in history to do that, by the way. I believe Jacksonville State was the other one, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that. But second team in history to do that. Shout out to Ryan Carty, Nick Minicucci, and the Blue Hens there. Actually, I'll be talking to Nick Minicucci sometime this summer, so stay tuned for that when that drops. But I think that's great. Like, this is a step in the direction where it's like finally the NCAA is making the right moves, where we want to see teams not get penalized if they actually perform well, because that's the thing that never made sense to me. If the SES team is coming to the FBS and they actively perform good enough to get a bowl game playing FBS talent, why would you inhibit them from playing in a bowl game? It doesn't make sense. It never made sense. I'm not sure why it became a rule. This weighted out thing just didn't. It doesn't make sense to. I mean, who thought of that? I mean, honestly, is that just like it's like one of those gatekeeping things where it's like, well, hey, you shouldn't be rewarded for doing what we do. Who thought of that? That's what I want to know, man. Who thought of that stuff? Because it's like that's a hater. It's a hater. It's one of the things that like stops. I mean, how can you not make fun of that, honestly? So I'm very, very happy to see that that's no longer an issue. So we will see teams potentially have the chance to change it now. Like you said, Sacramento State and North Dakota State could be bowl eligible in 2026 if they win 6 games, which I hope they do. I love seeing that stuff happen, man. There needs to be more. I'm very much a believer that there needs to be more parity in college football, because for whatever reason, and when it comes to like blue blood fans, the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world, like I can understand what their point of view, but this is the thing, man. There's 130 plus college football teams, in the FBS. I mean, just in FBS, right? Why would you not, or D1 rather? Sorry. Why would you not? Is it D1 or FBS? I guess I'm getting some brain fog. I apologize. But why would you not want to have as much like growth as possible? Like, as somebody on the outside too, why would you not want to see other schools succeed? Like, how narrow that base must be that only wants X school to succeed and Y school to consistently fail. We only really see that, like, I mean, really in the Big Ten and the SEC, which we just really talked about, right? I mean, we see some stuff sometimes in the Big 12, like we'll see USC or UCF and USF fans go at it, but that's like an old rivalry, so that makes sense. We'll see that. We'll see that with like FAU and FIU, but those like rivalries. But like, I mean, some of these other schools, like, it just doesn't make sense why you guys hate them. Like I can understand the Alabama versus Georgia thing, the Michigan versus Ohio State thing, even Michigan State, right? But like, why would you not want to see some of these other schools get in just because I mean, how many people are coming at Curt Cignetti now because he won the national title? I mean, I've seen people get caught with fake news talking about Curt Cignetti, like a fake quote about Cignetti, and people jumping on it because they didn't like how brash he was. I believe he called him a loudmouth. Called him a loudmouth. Yeah, I'm just like, why? The guy won. Like, he keeps it real. You may not like Cignetti's bluntness, but calling Cignetti a loudmouth is, I mean, that's just like peak. That's just peak good old boy behavior, Like, hey, I don't like this guy who came in from the Sun Belt or from James Madison. Why is he here? What's he doing? I don't like this guy from James Madison. He's winning Big Ten games. He shouldn't be. That's like the kind of vibe I get from that stuff. I don't know. That's just me. I'm just saying. Maybe I'm mistaken. But who knows? That said, I do want to take a quick break. Now, if you're new to the show, if you're new to watching the show, something that we used to do a lot on the previous show, College Football Now, is we would highlight players and player interviews and things of that nature to try to just showcase some of the talent around the league and some of the players. Whether it's high school prospects, it can be NFL drafts prospects, current college football players. There's a lot of players that we like to really highlight because we are fortunate enough to talk to a lot of great college football players, right? And in our episodes, we like to highlight them with the interviews we've done. We've been fortunate enough to really talk about all these players that have done an excellent job and they're just trying to grow and forward their career. And, we're pretty fortunate to do that. I just want to make sure, I'm trying to make sure a certain player was added on here before I start to bring in some of these numbers. But yeah, a lot of these guys do a lot of incredible things, and we like to try to highlight them as much as humanly possible because they do a lot of great stuff. And we were fortunate enough to talk to a lot of these guys, and a lot of them are really fantastic people, and some of them deserve more spotlight, especially like outside, especially once they get like to highlight them, right? Because non-autonomy players just don't get the love they deserve. And this is nothing against the P4 guys, because we talked to a bunch of those too. Don't get me wrong at all. But we do like to highlight a lot of the G6 guys and a lot of other players, that FCS guys, and there's a lot of great players on there. But with that being said, in today's this is a long-winded process for me to basically tell you I'm about to put some of these interviews on. And that's actually going to be Jake Retzlaff, who I'm pretty sure he just got invited to the Jets. To Jets taking a flyer on him ahead of rookie minicamp. We got to talk to Jake Retzlaff at the 2026 Hula Bowl. He was actually there with his brother Reggie. Their connection was great, fantastic. Reggie, by the way, a great low-end school player. I believe he was a D3 from Pueblo. Oh man, I gotta look that up real quick because that's gonna bug me. Colorado State, yeah, Colorado State. So that was messing with me so bad you have no idea. Pueblo is the team name. Jake Retzlaff, talked to him at the 2026 Hula Bowl. I apologize, this has gone off the rails. Talked to him at the 2026 Hula Bowl. Fantastic guy. He I was at BYU. He was actually at a community college before BYU, and then he went to Tulane after some issues there with the school at BYU. But we got to talk to him. He's now with the New York Jets. I hope everybody enjoys this conversation that we had with Jake, and I'm going to bring that in right now and make sure you guys can see that. Okay, perfect. And we're just going to go full screen, and I'm going to get out of here. And I hope you guys enjoy the conversation with Jake Retzlaff.
Jake Retzlaff, Tulane quarterback.
You're here at the Hula Bowl, culmination of your college football and just overall football experience. Kind of talk to that and what it means to be in an event like this.
Yeah, it's obviously exciting. Like it's good. It's a super fun event where we get to be in front of the scouts with these coaches around, other guys looking to do the same thing, right? To be able to line up and throw to other guys who are looking to go in the draft, and be in front of coaches who have a ton of NFL experience and they know what it's about. They're all these play concepts. They're telling us that you could expect to see that stuff in whatever offense you join. And so like a lot of that's super fun. Obviously playing for the Gruden brothers, like those guys are fun guys to be around. So I've been loving it so far.
You've had a very unique journey from here, right? Because you started at Riverside with playing with your brother, and then you ended up, getting to a power conference school, and now this past year in a playoff program. Can you just talk about what that journey's been like for you specifically?
Yeah, it's been fun, man. It's just been the relentless grind all the way through. There's been no shortcuts. There's no doubt about that. It's been a good time, man. I've loved every step of the way. Wouldn't have had it any other way.
Being at the quarterback position, especially at an event like this, where you're having so many NFL concepts thrown at you and so many different things thrown at you, kind of talk about what that adjustment's been like for you compared to some of the college offenses that you've ran in years past.
Yeah, to be honest with you, like the offense I just ran this last year at Tulane was very much West Coast, pro style offense. So like the routes or the plays that we're running here this week are very similar. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing that's super similar to the stuff I did. In fact, there's a play where we had a kill or a can earlier today, and the kill was like something I did a few times this year in games. And so like stuff like that, like I've already done a bunch of, man. I've been, like you said, a lot of different places, a lot of different offenses, and so I've seen a lot of different balls. So there's not a lot that can surprise you. Obviously, it's fun to move the ball in a little bit. For me, like every throw is going to be shorter for like the way I see it. Some might feel like every throw is longer. There's no boundary, but I feel like there's two boundaries now. So it's a blast. Throwing NFL football is a little bit different, fun to get used to. So yeah, I feel like I've been around, seen a lot of ball, played a lot of similar ball to what we're doing this week. So it hasn't been too much of an adjustment.
Yeah, and obviously the two head coaches, the two Gruden brothers, are very boisterous personalities. Has there been anything that they've taken that's been like, okay, this is like the Gruden guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, like these guys, they're just such ball guys. Like I think if you were to create a ball coach, you're describing both John and Jay Gruden. Like those guys are so fun, and their little jabs to each other are even more fun because they are brothers, and like I know how that's like with my brother being around, and so it's just a blast, man. Those guys are having so much fun. And I think it's making a great impact on us. Like it lets us loosen up a little bit, play with a little more fun, play a little looser, and I feel like when you do that, you can, you're ripping the ball down the field instead of being all stressed about different things. And at least I know on my side of the field, that's how it's been with Jay. I don't know about the other side, but I hope it gives us the advantage.
Tying into that, right, with having that type of professional level coach at this event, what's the biggest thing you've been able to learn already, even if it's a shorter week and you haven't finished out this entire week yet?
Yeah, just like picking things like Coach Flip was doing a quarterbacks on our side of the ball. Like, man, he's been everywhere. Like he was with the Eagles and Carson Wentz. Like he's just talking about these little things that these NFL coaches are going to say. These NFL concepts are going to be like, and how the NFL is seeing the field, all these things. And man, he talks to current coaches. He talks to older coaches. He is a dude who's been around and obviously seen a lot of football. And you could tell why he's been an NFL coach. He's a really good coach. Like I already know, like 2 days into it, I'm, excited and super happy to have these guys coaching me. Because like I said, they've seen a lot of ball, they know a lot of ball. And so they know when something's good. They know when something is not as good. And so it's fun to be able to just pick their brains constantly. Like I hope these coaches will get, they'll get a little bit annoyed at me by the end of this week just because I'm going to be, I'll ask a million questions throughout the week.
Yeah, that's a great thing though, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience like though? And what was your decision making as you've gone through these multiple schools?
Yeah, I was never actually in a transfer portal. I was a junior college kid coming out and then leaving BYU going to Tulane. It was never a transfer portal. It was so late in the year. So I probably couldn't even tell you I had a normal portal experience. The portal is a beast in itself. There's no doubt. A lot of guys go and, amplify their career after they go and they make better of it. Some other guys go and maybe go find somewhere where they're going to go play at. Like, that's what I love about it is you get a lot of these dudes who have been places, big places. They've been for maybe 2-3 years of their career. They're redshirt sophomore and like, well, I want to go play my last 2 years. I can go find a spot to play. That might be a little lower level versus some other guys who ball out at those, lower levels, whether it's, G5, which I would argue G5, Group of 5, and Power 5 conferences aren't what they used to be because G5s like us can go and beat the ACC champs. But, like those guys get to go elevate to bigger programs who have got way more resources. And now, more than ever with revenue sharing, there's going to be more and more of a gap built, I think, between those programs, except just because of the resources that they can pour into it at the top level. But then at the same time, guys are going to want to play. And so there's enough talent to go around that little old Tulane can make a splash.
A big thing, the quarterback position, is that rapport with the wideouts. And an event like this, you're getting a bunch of new guys thrown at you, and you're going to have to build those bonds in a very short amount of time. How's that process been for you, and how have you felt those bonds and that rapport build from the first day you've been here up until now?
Yeah, I mean, we're still, like I said, only 2 days in, but it's been great just to talk to these guys and hang out with these guys. My brother's one of them. That makes it really easy. And then just the other guys have been cool, man. Everybody's here for the same reason to go get showcased. So they all want to have those relationships. I think every position group has been great, just in mingling a little more together and having fun. Like I said, it's fun when you got like the coaches we got here, man. They're not, there's different styles to it. And their style is definitely more of the, like, going to be more personable, more make a joke in the middle of the walkthrough instead of feeling super stressed out about things. And so that helps so much because it just brings everybody together. Nobody feels like they're drowning. Everybody feels like there's something positive going on. We're all growing together. We all know it's our first 2 days in this offense, but if you watch the film, it doesn't look like it. Like, and Jay said that to us. He's like, dude, you guys look like you've been running this for, a year or so, and you've only ran it for 2 days. And so I think that's for a compliment really to his coaching and the way his style to approach it is like treat us all like pros. And, I'm hoping that I find something similar at the next level.
Yeah, I think that's important too, especially because this is like an all-star game for a lot of guys. This could be their last stop, so there's a lot of tension, right? And just being able to have that perspective on it and the way they go about it, it has to just ease things for you guys. I'm glad you mentioned your brother because you guys broke a lot of records together, and now you get to play with him again. So how was that experience?
Yeah, this is obviously a dream come true for my family. My mom just loved every second of it. She was beaming on the sidelines in the stands every single game. It was just a great experience, man. Like you said, we were super successful too. So it wasn't that we were just playing together; we were having a lot of success together, and that was a blast. That was second to none. That's one of the reasons I'd say I would never give up the scholar experience for maybe the 5-star experience where you get way more respect and all that stuff. Instead, junior college is more fun. The experience is more fun, and you get to learn and grow a lot more.
Shifting to more off-field stuff, what do you like to do outside the game of football? And more importantly, in addition, what do you do to keep yourself balanced along with playing this game?
Yeah, I'd say the answer to both those things is in my college career, I picked up the great game of golf. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it, man. I've been diving into it all. It's fun to watch, especially like watching the pro athletes go golf, who are not golfers, obviously. And so, like, it's been such a blast. I've been learning. I'm only a few years in, but I feel like I'm making quick progress. It helps that I'm a rotational position throwing the football, so golf is helping with that. Be a rotational athlete, but it's fun, man. It just gets you away from it. It gets you back in nature a little bit, even though it's completely groomed course. It's still some of them are in the woods in Utah a lot. I was in the backwoods sometimes in a canyon, and it was like no cell service, and it was like, wow, this is paradise. You wish you could just stay there forever until you realize how much fun football really is. But when you want to get away from the game for a little bit, which is, I believe in that. I believe that's important, and so being able to do that sometimes is beautiful. I love it.
A lot of guys here have said they're getting into golf, so I'm going to ask you this: make your case for why you are the best golfer here.
It's a great question, man. I think that when you think about golf and football players, there's only one position that comes to mind, and it's quarterbacks. We've all seen Travis Kelce golf. We've all seen Jason Kelce golf. Like, these guys are not golf. But have you seen Tony Romo golf? Have you seen those guys golf? Josh Allen is a heck of a golfer. Like, these guys who are golfers are, they're quarterbacks. So, man, you got to find a quarterback to find a good golfer. We know how the golf swing works with the hip movement. That's what we do at quarterback. And so that's all I got to say, man. I've incorporated every bit of that into my golf swing. I used to be Slice McGee until I figured it out, you know what I mean? Because I was a baseball player, but all I did was get back to my football mechanics. And next thing you know, I'm striping the fairways. And I think my best piece is probably my approach game, is getting that ball, learn how to spin it on the green a little bit on good green. So fun deal.
Love that. Now, a lot of guys have either a superstition or a game day routine. Does that apply to you? And if so, what is it?
It's a good question. I think my most important thing is my morning shower. That game day is going to be the longest shower ever. It's going to be a full shower just to get ready. I feel like that gets me fresh for the game. Like, I want to be fresh for the game in every way, and that includes making sure I'm fresh out of the shower right before we get on that bus and head over whenever time. For sometimes it was getting up, way early in the morning because we had like 11 a.m. kicks, but it was always happening. You can guarantee it was going to happen. So yeah, that's kind of a one, I guess, routine that I did on game days. I'm not a crazy superstitious guy. I'm just a little stitious, as Michael Scott would say. But yeah, that's probably my routine.
Can't beat that. And now a question I like to ask basically everyone we talk to that is heading towards the next level. If there was one guy at your position that you could either have be your mentor or that you would want to model your game after, who would it be and why?
It's a great question. A couple names come to mind. Having the BYU connection, Steve Young. I've had to build a little relationship with him. Like, he would be an incredible mentor to reach into, and he has in some ways. And so there's a kind of a cop-out easy answer because he's been a resource to me. Like, thinking about guys, especially current guys, like Matthew Stafford's a dude who I love watching him play. I love watching him rip the ball. One of the smartest dudes, most mechanically sound dudes in the NFL right now. Like, he's a fun guy to watch for me. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy I've looked up to my whole career. And so it'd be cool to, I don't know how much time he's got left, but it'd be cool to be able to play around him, or even, like you said, be a mentee of a guy like that, man. He's done it all. He's obviously MVP, Super Bowl. And then the obvious answer to any quarterback would ever say, if they don't say Tom Brady would be a great resource, then they're crazy. So a guy like that would be, save the best for last. He'd be an unbelievable opportunity to talk to a guy like that and be a mentee of a guy like that.
And my last one for you, as you progress through this process and even beyond this week at the Hula Bowl, what's the biggest, or I would guess, what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to? Your favorite thing that you're anticipating throughout this process?
Just, getting the name called on draft day, whatever day that is. Like, I'm just excited for that fact. And like, for me, the process of recruiting was never fun. I was never a highly ranked guy. It was felt like I was trying to sell myself to everybody else. And like, it's similar in the draft. There's got similar feelings of that. So it's like a little bit of a bad taste, but at the same time, it's like, I know I've proved it. I'm a lot more wanted than I ever was coming out of high school, and so I'm excited for that fact. Like, I'm excited to put in this work in the off season, these next few weeks training. It's kind of crazy. Coming here is basically, right off the season. And so it's been a quick turnaround. I haven't gotten back into the great off season shape that I'm looking forward to getting to in these next, 6 weeks before the combine. So yeah, stuff like that, man. And there's nothing's going to beat getting the name called.
And before we get you out of here, man, if you have any social media, just let everybody know, all the fans know where they can find you at.
Yeah, I'm on pretty much everything. I'm JRats11, Instagram. What do we have? Instagram and Twitter. I think that's really all that really matters. I don't even run my TikTok's got nothing on it. So yeah, Instagram is JRats11. Go follow it.
Dude, I love Retzlaff. Great guy. Great guy. Shout out to Jake. He latched on with the New York Jets. I believe his brother Reggie latched on somewhere too. I'm gonna have to double check that very quick before we go on to our next topic here. Where did Reggie go? I know he was at least invited to a mini camp by somebody. Yeah, is invited to the Jets and the Raiders. Shout out Reggie and shout out Jake. Two fantastic players. His brother Reggie, wide receiver, by the way, he was for CSU Pueblo for the Thunderwolves. Big fan of his film. He was actually fantastic at the Hula Bowl too. Him and Jake, I'm pretty sure they connected with the touchdown in the actual game. That was a I mean, you want to talk about interesting experiences, and I guess I'm getting a nice glare from the sun over in here now. If you want to talk about a very interesting experience, talk about the Hula Bowl, man. Oh my Lord. Very fascinating. I do appreciate some of the players we got to talk to, some fantastic guys who not only played well there, but got invites to other games as well, like the Shrine and the Senior Bowl, and I believe the American Bowl, the newest one that's also in Florida. A couple guys got invites over there too. Devon Marshall got an invite there, cornerback from NC State. Michael Heldman, edge rusher from the Chippewas. I believe that's Central Michigan. He got to go to the Shrine Bowl as well. There's a few guys who actually got to go. Wyoming offensive lineman. I'm blanking on his name. I do apologize. There's a lot of names. A lot of guys ended up getting chances to go elsewhere. So that's one of the great things with bowl games. But yeah, the Hula Bowl, very fascinating. But we did get a fantastic opportunity to talk to numerous players like Jake Retzlaff that you just saw, and some of the other players that we've shown on this early showcasing already. And if you followed us over from College Football Now, we also put out a couple of those guys as well. So very cool. With that being said, before we get to any further topics, this is a live show. Make sure to click that like button. It's completely free to do so. If you're on X/Twitter, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, make sure to click that like button. You can share it, subscribe to the channel. All helps us out. You can leave a comment as well if you want, or a question. But you can also, I don't get to you now when the show's airing, apologize. Words are bad for me sometimes. But if you comment after the show ends, give me about 24, 48 hours. I'll make sure to get back to you with an answer or response. Appreciate everybody who is checking out the show. At the bottom of the hour, which is about 15 minutes, we'll actually have Greg Nejmeh of Accelerate Sports Ventures coming in. We're going to talk a little bit of NFL stuff. Actually, we're going to talk the NFL draft. We're going to talk what got him into the sport. We're going to discuss, the college football landscape. Ways G6s can compete with P4s. And kind of segue into. We're going to kind of segue into his company, ASV, that he's now president of, talking about the firm, how they're helping current programs that he is currently partnered with. And he's partnered with a lot of good universities. Appreciate him coming on. And then at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock, we're going to have Maddy Hudak. She is a sideline reporter for the Tulane Green Wave. She also, I believe, works at RGB. I just want to make sure I get that correct before I end up announcing that, because I get the RGB or RBJ. I'm not great. If you're going to realize one thing, I'm not great. It's RTB. I was completely off anyway. RTB, Roundtable Network. She is also the assistant national editor in chief there for the sports. And she was at the Scouting Academy. She actually graduated Tulane in 16. So going on 10-year grad, congrats to her. But she'll be on at the top of the hour, and we're going to talk some Tulane football. We're going to talk what got her into journalism, her reaction to the Sumrall leaving and the legacy that he's left at Tulane, early impressions of new head coach Will Hall, who comes over. We're going to talk about player standouts and her observations from the spring and what her expectations are for the Green Wave this season, because they are coming off a American Championship victory that was under Sumrall, under a different quarterback. A lot of moving parts now for Tulane entering 2026, and Maddy will give us the 411 on everything about that. So looking forward to having those two join us here in a little bit. But before we get Greg on, I do want to talk about something else. And this is, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, with numerous college football programs have been accused of tampering with Jaron Cave Sungapula-Tele, the freshman, now sophomore quarterback for the California Golden Bears. He was a freshman phenom in his first year. I mean, JKS was just a monster in his first season for the Golden Bears. Rarely do you see a true freshman put up the kind of numbers he did with 3,400, a little over 3,400 passing yards, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a little dangerous with the football, 7 yards per attempt, but he didn't mind slinging it too, nearly 500 times there. That went more of a pocket passing quarterback, which we don't see too much of actually anymore in college football. So seeing him, maybe I turn this. Maybe I don't need this light on anymore. I think I need the light still. Sorry. It's either like I go orange face. Maybe I'll change the light color. Nah, that's a little better. That's a little better. I don't know. I don't know, guys. What do you think? But we don't normally see a true freshman perform the way that Jaron did, especially in an offense that saw a lot of moving parts. I mean, in the offseason alone last year, Cal lost almost every single running back. They lost their first 3, 4. I think they lost their first 3 starting running backs and then 2 others just in the portal last year. They lost some receivers in the portal. They lost a lot in the portal last year. Nazier Hunter left. This is also when Fernando Mendoza left as well. Jack Endries left as well, tight end. But they had some, fantastic replacements. Mason Minnie, he's looked great. Jacob DeJesus looked fantastic for them last year. So Cal had some good pieces, and JKS played phenomenally. And there was questions entering this offseason whether or not Cal was going to be able to retain him. And they ended up retaining him. He got paid very well, as he should. But there's now reports coming out, and this actually came out, I believe, I think this might have been this morning or it was yesterday. Give me one sec. I'm going to check for it. Yeah, okay, so this was yesterday. there were reports that numerous teams contacted him or his family, teams from the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, teams everywhere were trying to get him, quote unquote. This is an article now from Sporting News from Sam Profeta, who reported on it yesterday, which we kind of already knew, right? So then the tampering, but this is where it's interesting because the tampering came even after JKS expressed his intention to remain at Berkeley, and they were still hitting him up. And now this is coming from a Cal staff from the article. The biggest thing for JKS is getting his body in a better spot. Obviously, the great spot last year, national progression to your physical development. Focusing on that, adding muscle mass, toning himself down. He's done fantastic from that. So it's actually great to see him back and not dealing with the not letting the tampering get to him, I guess we'll say. And they've also added some great players, honestly, this year for him to help. Ian Strong from Rutgers was a fantastic addition. Chase Hendricks, also great. Dorian Thomas, a good add. They have Adam Muhammad, a 4-star running back. Rico Walker. The tight end room looks really nice. Cooper Perry, a 3-star wideout that they grabbed there. Ashton Emery, that's a pickup that I like. Carter Vargas, I don't mind that one either. And they added a couple 3-star offensive linemen as well to the portals. Ashton Rivera, Kelly Taffy, Timothy Lewis, Michael Rabis, and Jacob Arup. So there's a lot of great players being added for Cal, but I do want to talk about the tampering issue for one thing, for quickly, because I know some people are maybe a little surprised that it's happening, but tampering in college football is as prevalent as it ever was. I think if anything, the NIL and everything like that has made it even worse because now you can have third parties kind of reach out and do it for them. And we do got some comments in here. We got Shane. What's up, Shane? Appreciate you, brother. Love JKS in 2027 for Auburn. Hey man, maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see your boy over there in Auburn, Alex Golish. Maybe he'll do some tampering next, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, he won't do that. But the tampering, it's beyond prevalent. I mean, we've seen it this year, even without JKS. I mean, we saw it from another Cal player in Luke Farrelly, dealing with the stuff that happened with Ole Miss and I think it was Clemson. That was insane. And Luke, by the way, I know Luke's father. Like, I know his brother too. I actually covered his brother at a game in UAlbany when they played. And Shane comes in, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's good. Hey, that's the SEC model right there, right? Oh, I love that. I actually know the Farrellys. They're really good people. But the way I always look at it is, if I'm a kid, if I'm an 18-year-old kid and somebody's saying they're going to give me $2 million, $3 million, shoot, man. When I was playing football, they didn't even have NIL. Like, they didn't even give anybody money on the teams I was on. So seeing some of these kids, like, I don't blame them when somebody goes like, "Hey, I'll buy you a brand new car, or I'll buy your mom a house, or I'll give you $1 million or $100,000. I would have jumped at that. So I don't blame that. But point being, we've seen that stuff with Luke Farrelly just this offseason, another Cal player who was getting tampered with after he already hit the portal, but that's different. But it just shows that, right, like, it's happening more and more. I mean, we saw with Darian Mensah with Duke and going to Miami. I mean, Duke sued him. Duke sued him for getting out of that contract. He like broke a contract to go to Miami, and how much money was that paid off for? I mean, there's videos. Benson was already doing videos for Duke for the upcoming season before he even went to Miami, and then they swiftly deleted that video. And the video was posted like a day or two before he even went there. So tampering is a very common thing, especially now. I mean, it was common back then, but now it's just, I feel like it might even be worse because, like I said, now there's third parties that can come in and convince that don't even have to be part of the staff or the boosters, right? Some third party NILs come in. If a major company, if you're a kid from, New Hampshire, and there's a major company in Texas coming down, the oil guys in Texas, like, "Hey, buddy, how about we'll give you $2 million? You just come down here, we'll give you $2 million NIL. You just get on down over here." If I'm the kid from New Hampshire, I'm jumping at that. $2 million, you'd be lucky to see. I mean, some kids are lucky to even see half of that, So especially a group of 6 kids. I mean, some outside of like a handful of players, group of 6 kids don't necessarily get paid too well. There's some exceptions, obviously. I mean, there's some kids at FAU that get paid well. Starting quarterbacks across the G6 usually get paid well. I mean, we saw East Carolina lose their quarterback in Caden Hauser because of NIL. Like they wanted him. They wanted him to. I think he wanted $2 million or something like that. He was getting offered a lot of money, and he ended up leaving ECU, and now he plays for Illinois. And Caden's a great kid, great quarterback. Gotten to talk to him. He's fantastic too. Oh, dude. Sorry, Shane sent me a hilarious text. If you don't know Shane, she's part of the but Shane, to answer your question, Shane, we can maybe depends. It depends on who it is. But in terms of what players can get from group of 6, it's all different now, and the way that the NIL is set up, it allows some of these players to get what they couldn't get before, and that's why we may see tampering becoming a whole different kind of thing. Especially now, right? Especially when we see the NCAA having issues dealing with that. And just the lackadaisical nature of the NCAA and the people at the top end of itself, right? I mean, on Wednesday's show, we talked about LIU facing a 3-year probation, right, because of eligibility issues, just to find out that their president was actually on the board for the NCAA of handling that particular stuff, and they still messed up. So when it comes to putting stuff in faith of the NCAA and its bodies, most people don't, and it's hard to blame them for that. And that's why we might see some more, nefarious stuff happening. I mean, honestly, like, should we see penalties for that stuff? Who knows? Because they, there's conversations all the time, and I think even Davo Sweeney has actually said that stuff too. Like, multiple teams have said that. I know Fran Brown has talked about players getting tampered with during the Colin McCord years when he had year rather. So tampering has become more of a prevalent thing. Whether or not it ends up becoming more regulated, something ends up happening, penalizing of universities that do so in a more realistic and respectful fashion, that remains to be seen. It'll be very fascinating, but I just wanted to hit on that topic real quickly because actually we do have our guest in the green room right now. He worked in the NFL for 16 years as an executive with the New York Jets, worked his way up, very fantastic. And now he is president of Accelerate Sports Ventures. I'd like to bring him in right now. It is Greg Nejmeh. Greg, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you taking the time out.
No, of course, man. I'm happy to do it. This is exciting what you guys have going on.
I appreciate you, man. Now, for anybody listening who may not know you, like, tell everyone a little bit about you, what got you into the sport, and what do you do now?
Man, I mean, I got into the sport when I was about 8 years old. My dad and uncles played. They were all state players, and so I kind of followed in their footsteps. Had a pretty good high school career. Fell in love with it, at a young age. Played at the Division III level, and then got hired by the Jets as just a training camp intern, and was there for 16 years, like you mentioned. Left there about a year and a half ago. And now I'm the president of Accelerate Sports Ventures, which is a really cool opportunity. And, we're working with various colleges just kind of on the current landscape, which I'm sure we'll get into, and, how we can kind of help support them from just a true evaluation and roster building standpoint.
Yeah, did you play quarterback in college, Greg?
I did. Yeah. High school and college. Yep.
So I just quickly want to ask you, man, what was your favorite concept to run?
I love the wheel route.
Yeah.
Okay. We would always run a little slant wheel, and sometimes I'd roll out to it a little bit, but if the corner sat or bit, we'd get the wheel up the sideline. So I love throwing wheels and I love throwing flags. Those are my two that I just felt like I could hit all day.
I love that, man. So taking advantage of some one-on mismatches too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The draft wrapped up, a couple weeks ago now. I just wanted to get your quick thoughts. Like, what were there any bigger surprises in your opinion that went? I mean, particularly like whether in the first couple of rounds, did anything stand out to you?
The thing that stood out to me more than anything was the way the quarterbacks kind of came off the board after the first, two guys really. Honestly, I love both the top two quarterbacks, and I think what the Rams did, in my opinion, was really smart. I think Ty Simpson is going to be a really good player. So, but more so after that, like I felt like the group of guys after that, they were all very similar, and there wasn't a whole lot of difference between them. But to me, it was really interesting to see how some of them went in the third, fourth, and then others went all the way in the seventh. And that's a pretty wide gap just in terms of where you were drafted. And just in me watching them, my evaluation of them, I didn't feel like there was that much of separation between them. So I think it'd be really interesting to see like some of those guys that did go in the fifth, sixth, seventh versus some of them that went a little earlier, like how that really plays out. Because that kind of caught my eye. I thought they'd all go a little bit closer, to each other.
Yeah, I was surprised too, especially when, for the Jets, for example, they traded up to grab Cade, and then I didn't see any other quarterback taken for a while. And there was thoughts that somebody else was going to, trade up for either him or someone else, and it didn't happen. And we just saw guys kind of fall back. I was very surprised at that too. So that was a good point. I've been thinking about that because there's a lot of good talent. Like, obviously, I don't know if they're all like starting material guys, but you never know if a guy could be a spot guy down the road, a bridge, whatever, journeyman backup. But I thought, I agree with you. I think the levels were very similar. Yeah. But I also wanted to talk to you. Obviously, you're in the college football realm now. You help a lot of college football programs. Can you just talk about what ASV does and how they help the universities that you're dealing with?
Yeah, so my role there really is focused on obviously the football side of things, and Doug Phillips, our CEO, he had a great vision for this, and really what we try to do at a high level is just provide extra evaluation clarity and decision support for these colleges. I feel like there's a ton of information out there, but in a lot of respects, it kind of has to come back to the film and the evaluation, and objectively looking at it to help these colleges expand their scope in some areas, add a layer of protection in some areas. Now that there's money tied to this at the level it is, which is something I'm used to being in the NFL, the mistakes really you can't absorb too many mistakes, especially at the varying levels. So, I'm not making the decision, but I'm providing a layer of information based on my, experience as a scout and film-based evaluation as a decision support layer really for all these colleges. And it's been really exciting, and it's been awesome to get to know and talk to and work with these different colleges because there's so much difference and variance in how they do things. So it's been awesome.
That's what I was going to ask you, because like every staff has their own separate way of analyzing a player or what they're looking for in a player, right? So how do you go about working with them? Is it like finely attuned approach to where you model after traits or style of player, things that they're looking for, and adapt it to what you're scouting for, or how does that process work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think each school that I've talked to or that we're working with has a different take on kind of where they need it and all that sort of stuff. I think the one thing that's consistent though is bringing like an objective layer of evaluation to it, right? But that fits into how they do things. So being able to manipulate it in a way that speaks their language, right? Whether it be their traits or the scheme that they're looking for, or even, how they kind of grade players, right? Being able to, to fit it into that, I think helps them operate with a lot more speed and a lot more clarity. So the cool thing about it for me, like I've always been a very process oriented guy in how I've gone about it. So I kind of had a structure and process in place, but really the most valuable conversations that I've had and the work that we've done with teams has been me hearing from them how they need it to look, right? And me being able to kind of, tweak it for them. And that, to me, that's where the value of this comes in, at a really high level, because it's not just one size fits all. Every college has a different set of challenges and circumstances that they have to deal with. And so to allow them to kind of teach me how it can fit in, and then me finding a way to do that has been, it's been awesome, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. That's fascinating. So when schools do reach out to you, is it more like they don't necessarily have the resources themselves to want to do that process, or is it because they're looking for like that third eye, eye in the sky to kind of overlook things?
I think it depends on the school, honestly. Some they may just want an additional set of eyes, right, in the portal, or they want kind of an objective look at things, right, where there's not a whole lot of internal influence, right, and just to be able to balance things out. It's not. None of this is to replace a staff in any way, right? It's to just add information layer onto their process. So some of them look at it that way. Others look at it a little differently, where they may need a little bit more structure or whatnot behind what they're doing. Some of them, like I've talked to so many schools, either me reaching out to them or them reaching out to me. And the one thing I found is there's so many just really talented people at every level of college football. But in a lot of cases, the volume with the portal and all the decisions that have to go into it year round, there's not the resources that you have at the NFL level in terms of staff and scope and all that sort of stuff. So that's been something that for me, I've been able to kind of help show how I can provide some value to each one of the schools. But the scope of it depends really on who you're talking to and what their need is.
Right, that makes sense, and you provide a great point. There are a lot of. I mean, working with a lot of Group of 6 schools, non-autonomy schools, I do get to speak to a lot of those staffs, and a lot of them are fantastic people. Some of them just potentially maybe understaffed or just looking for ways to improve on. Because that brings me to kind of segues to what I want to ask you as well. With the way things are changing with the NIL and just the landscape of college football, there seems to be almost a rift growing, I guess, between the autonomy and non-autonomy programs, and as somebody who works with autonomy programs and non-autonomy programs, what kind of needs to be done to bridge the gap, so to speak, between those smaller schools and the larger ones, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the reality is just acknowledging the obvious, right? That some just don't have the same level of resources, right? So that's going to be a challenge, obviously, for some of the smaller schools. I think the smaller schools, the non-autonomy schools, like they have to be so intentional about what they do, right? And every dollar really counts. In some cases, their scope is not as wide, right? Because they just don't have the resources to do it. But I think a couple of ways. Number one, the smaller schools, to an extent, they can sell some opportunity more than they might be able to sell, a price point, right? But finding the right players for that opportunity is still vitally important, and so being really intentional and thoughtful about that. I think where they can, trying to widen their scope. So there's players at various levels that probably can help them and enhance their roster to an extent. And look, at the end of the day, if you make 2 or 3 really sound strategic decisions, whether that's an evaluation or a roster allocation decision, or even like a replacement, cost analysis, like that stuff can make a huge impact across your roster, and the difference to me, like, some of these schools, like it's not that big of a gap, the 4 or 5 win teams and the 9 to 10 win teams, right? It's not that big of a gap when you watch them, right? So a couple strategic decisions like that, I think, can go a long way. And I think the schools that have already kind of figured it out, like in some cases, the G6 schools, like they are competing already, right? I mean, look at the teams in the American. I think the American's one of the, probably one of my favorite conferences in the country, right? Just because of how good some of the teams are, how competitive it is, the depth of it. And some of them they've already figured it out, right? But how do they sustain it to be able to compete, with the bigger schools? I think the same thing applies, really, right? If you're one of those schools that are in the middle of the pack or trying to rebuild and get to a higher level in that conference or at that level, the same thing applies. It's being really intentional, really thoughtful, like where you can widen your scope to create more options that can really help your roster out. But those schools do such a tremendous job, given the constraints that they have. And in a lot of ways, it's so challenging for them, but I think they'll all be, in the long run, a lot better off for it,
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out the American, because we've talked about that before, and the American is just a strong conference. I mean, we're kind of seeing some continuity, like you saw Tulane before Jon Sumrall came in at Tulane. People had questions whether they would still remain successful, and he just won the championship for them last year before moving to Florida. And we're just seeing that happen. I mean, even Navy's a whole different animal because they can't even use the transfer portal, and they managed to perform well as well. But I guess that's also a good segue, like mentioning how they can utilize, either film aspects or the way that they go about recruiting or in the transfer portal is by utilizing a service like you guys, right? I mean, that's kind of a big reason why you guys are here and helping that. So I guess for people who are listening, maybe not hearing you for the first time, or didn't, for anybody who's listening now, we actually did an interview and an article is out speaking with Greg about Accelerate Sports Ventures. You can find that at theleaguewinners.com. Greg, can you just talk about like what your goal is for the company short term and what your goal is for the company long term, and how that goes with the changing college football landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, and I think I shared this with you when we first spoke, like having the goals really are to have a legitimate impact for the schools that we're working with year one, right? For them to feel like there was support added, there was, an extension kind of their staff in some cases, right? And it helped them get to, a couple really good sound decisions for them, right? Or find a player or a value that maybe they previously weren't able to find. And it really helps their roster. I think clarity and I think objectivity in evaluation at this point with the college landscape is one of the biggest competitive advantages a team can have, right? And so I want all the schools that we work with to feel like this was a value add to them. I'm not making the decision. I'm not replacing them in any way. They're making it, but hopefully to get to the right decision more times than not. And for them, it'll cause them to prosper and have more success. So, that's kind of how I look at it in the short term. And that's really, my focus of it, year one. Beyond that, look, obviously, I think there's a great opportunity for this to grow and to continue to expand and touch and reach more, more programs. But that only is important to me if the programs that we're working with truly feel it, right? And that's the rewarding part for me. I could talk football all day. I love it. I love watching players, offer my thought and opinion. And so to be able to develop these relationships with the various schools and help them where they need it, like, to me, that's really rewarding. And it's just something that for me at the point I'm at right now, with my career, that is something I didn't really foresee a couple years ago, but, I couldn't be happier with where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and the cool thing is you've kind of already seen proof of concept of that, with the success you guys have had so far. When you work with Penn State, the Utahs of the world, but you also work with the school right in my backyard at Siena. So it's really cool seeing that, you're not just prioritizing big schools, you're prioritizing, the programs overall. And I think that's something that's really important because you're not just, kowtowing to, bigger programs. You're trying to help everybody.
Absolutely. That's something that's really important too to me. Yeah. Like, I don't, the level of school, to me, it doesn't matter so much as it matters like the intentionality behind the conversations that you're having, right? Because you don't know where people's careers can go and how they can evolve, and if I can be a small part of helping that in some way, like that means a ton to me.
Yeah, exactly. And I echo similar statements like that to, even people in my own company when we work with, whether it's players, programs, schools, you never know where a guy can be at stage 1 as opposed to stage 4, right?
Yeah.
Now, Greg, before I get you out of here, man, let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media. What's Accelerate's social media so they can find that as well?
Yeah, so it's Accelerate Sports Ventures, both on Instagram, X, TikTok. On Twitter, I'm at Greg Nejmeh 4. And then on Instagram, it's just regular Greg Nejmeh, at Greg Nejmeh. So yeah, reach out to me. I've had a ton of inbound calls and just people interested in hearing about it. And, some more who, at the school level who want to connect me with other people. So it's been really fun. It's been an exciting time. And you guys are doing a hell of a job, man. Where this thing's going is exciting. You'll be up there with Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport in a year or two, I feel like.
Dude, I appreciate the I'm hoping so, man. And it's great seeing you guys do well too. I think you guys are really going to truly blow up with the way the college football landscape is changing.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited about where it's going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you too, man.
That is Greg Nejmeh of Accelerate Sports Ventures. Make sure you guys give him a follow on his X or Twitter. He's also on Instagram as well. And while you're at it, check out Accelerate Sports Ventures. I like to call them ASV for short. Nice little initials there. I do appreciate him coming on the show. Fantastic guy. And I do want to thank him for coming on. Make sure you guys give them a shout, because with the way, and I'm being so serious, with the way the college football landscape is shaking out, film, when it comes to NIL firms and consulting firms and things of that nature, there's going to be certain properties that stand out. Some of them use AI to do roster building and things like that. Some of them use statistics. ASV uses film and film analysis, and I'm a massive fan of that because, you know, stats can lie, AI can lie, but film doesn't lie. And when you have people who spent years in the NFL, who have that type of experience that Greg does, 16 years as an executive co-director, he worked his way up, and he ended up being the co-director of player personnel with the New York Jets. You want somebody like that to be analyzing your team, to be analyzing your program, and to be helping you build a roster. So I think that the film aspect of that is going to make ASV something incredibly useful for college programs. And like we mentioned, he doesn't just work with the big programs in the college football world. He also works with, he works with Siena, a small school right in my own backyard. So I do want to give him a shout out for doing that, because not too many people would want to do that. A lot of people just chase the money. ASV is looking for trying to help everybody to the best they can with the right intentions behind that. So I do appreciate all the work that he does. With that said, this is a live show, as you can just see. We had Shane come in with some comments. Appreciate you, Shane. Love you, buddy. Make sure you guys click that like button. It's completely free to do so. If you're watching on X/Twitter, make sure to click that retweet button. Helps the show out a lot. You guys can also check us out on YouTube or Facebook, where this is also live. Just make sure to click that like button, click that share button. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free. Live show, leave a comment. I'll get right to you, put it right on the air. If you comment after the show ends, that's completely fine too. Give me 24, 48 hours, and I will get back to you. We just had Greg Nejmeh of Accelerate Sports Ventures, president of Accelerate Sports Ventures, live on the show. At the top of the hour, we are going to have Maddy Hudak, sideline reporter for the Tulane Green Wave, and she also works at RTB Roundtable Sports as the assistant national editor-in-chief. She's going to be at the top of the hour. We're going to talk some Tulane football. And before I do that, though, because this is a longer show than normal, normally we stop airing at about 10 o'clock. I wanted to make sure that we could get her on the show. We're going to play another interview for you guys. Give me a little water break before we bring her on. And this is a very special player, because my friend Daniel Zuniga from New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, put me on to him, and he ended up going and getting an invite to the Shrine Bowl. He was selected in the 7th round of the NFL draft. So I do really I am a big fan of him, and we got to talk to him at the Shrine Bowl. He's now with the Philadelphia Eagles, selected in the 7th round of the NFL draft. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation that me and VP of the League Winners, Brandon Pockris, had with Keyshawn James Newby. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll be back.
Keyshawn James Newby, University of New Mexico, and I play edge.
Here at the East-West Shrine Bowl, we are through 3 days of practice. Talk to us about what your experience has been so far and what it means to you to be at an event like this.
Overall experience, I'd say it's kind of overwhelming, but, obviously enjoyable at the same time. Like, I've had a good time here, and, all the guys here play at a very high level, and that's something I need for my draft stock to either, raise or lower, just depending on how I do here. And, so I've enjoyed it, though. I've had fun here, and, it's been a good time so far.
And you've looked impressive, man. You've had a very unique career, right? Because I believe you were an NAIA All-American and FCS All-American, and then you were an All-American this past year, I believe, 3rd team. Yeah. So can you just talk about that journey, what it's been like, the transfer portal, and everything of that nature?
It's crazy, man. So NAIA, they don't have a transfer portal, so you're kind of just like Twitter DMing coaches, and you're kind of just shooting emails out and hoping someone reaches out. And luckily, the GA from Idaho ended up reaching out to me and, hollering at me and let me play in Idaho. So it was pretty sweet. And then New Mexico, I just transferred over there with my head coach once he left Idaho. So
tying into that, when it comes to your football career, what is the moment that made you really say, hey, I can do this? That moment, every athlete has it, where they do something on the field, they're like, whoa, it's like, I got this. Was there one at every level? Was there one that really just set the tone for the rest of your career? Kind of just talk to us about that.
I'd probably say 2024 when I played at Oregon. That was like the game that kind of made me realize, yeah, I could possibly do this and, maybe actually make a living out of this. So that was really the game that I'd say kind of ignited my fire. And then Montana Tech, I was really just trying to get a degree, NAI, you don't really expect many guys. No hate to my NAI guys, but NAI, you're kind of just playing football and you're getting your school paid for just to get that free schooling. So, yeah, it was really Idaho 2024 when I played that Oregon game.
And at New Mexico, you, Coach Eck, you guys played a massive role in turning that program around. Can you just speak about Eck's leadership on the field and if he's given you anything off the field?
Eck's one guy that really is strict about discipline, and that's one thing I like about him is that he kind of beats it into you, not in a bad way, in a good way. He wants to make sure you're on top of everything, and he wants the best version of you, and that's not only just for me, that's for all of his players. He treats all of his players almost like his kids, and he just likes to make sure we're always being the best version of ourselves, and that's one thing I really do like about Coach Eck, and I think he knows how to bring a brotherhood together, and like he did at New Mexico. It took him January till whenever we finished December. When we brought a brotherhood together, we went 9-4, and we had a good season. So,
when it comes to you as a player, you not only show a lot of burst and athleticism and pass rush prowess off the edge, but you also attack downhill in the run game. What is your mentality in terms of playing the overall edge position, and how have you grown as a player over the years and even at this event this week?
I would say just mean and stoutness. You want to be mean and stout. And, some things I've learned here while I've been playing here is that it's nice to be in a 9-tech. I never really played 9-tech that much, but when you kind of get that free range to just kind of run as fast as you can off the edge, it's easier to make plays a little bit more. And, the coaches that we're getting coached by right now are really cool, and, they're super positive, and I appreciate them for that because, sometimes I can get mad at myself or get in my head about, what plays I don't think I did well in and whatnot, and they kind of help me build me back up. So,
you showed a tremendous versatility, man. Your pass rushing skill set has been fantastic, but you've also been setting the edge in the run game. So it's been very impressive watching in teams. But I wanted to ask you, because I ask a lot of players this, everybody kind of has like a superstition, a routine, or a ritual that on game day to kind of get them in the zone. Is there anything, does that apply to you at all? And if so, what is it?
So every day here, I've treated even practices as game day. So I'm coming in with a game day mentality, and that's honestly how you should attack every day when you're on the football field. Even in New Mexico, every day I went in there to practice and whatnot. I treated it as a game day, and something I kind of found myself getting into a routine of is early, when I wake up right in the morning, I hop in the shower, and a hot shower kind of gets my body started and going. And then I'll put on my beats, and I'll just listen to Everybody Loves the Sunshine. Hey, it's a good song, man, and it kind of just sets the tone for the day. That's really about it.
When it comes to you as a pass rusher, I love that you brought up the 9-tech because it is truly an art, playing the trench positions, but even off the edge with all the things you can do to set up moves and false step moves and set something else up off of that. What is your plan? Not to give away trade secrets because we don't want to give away your entire plan.
Right.
Kind of just walk us through what goes into you developing how you like to attack certain offensive linemen?
So, it all really just depends on how the offensive lineman shoots his hands first. It obviously takes some time to, get to know the offensive lineman and, who you're going against. So if he's a double underarm shooter, then, you're kind of looking forward to those chops, which those are the guys I really like to play against because I feel like it's easiest for me because I'm kind of lower to the ground than most defensive ends that play at this position. And so, I kind of like the lower arm shooter guys. And then, there's guys that are straight punchers and, you kind of just base it off what you see and feel. And then also when you get it tied in chips and stuff, that kind of throws off almost your whole rush in a way. So you kind of have to think fast and act fast. And so, once you get a tight end chip, you kind of want to get that O-lineman's hips turned. You kind of want to see where the quarterback is, if he's going to step up, if he's going to step a little bit more back. You kind of just give the O-lineman a little shimmy, and then, you go whatever way you want or whatever way you believe is where the quarterback is going to go.
And we did mention earlier, you have had a unique collegiate football career. Looking back on it, do you have a specific favorite memory or moment throughout your time playing?
I'd say New Mexico, man. We were in the summer and we would run these dunes, and like I think Brian Urlacher really started it, and we run those dunes, dude, and they were horrible, but it was me and all my brothers. We were together. We were doing it together, and that's one thing like I really appreciated. You know, that kind of brought us all together. You know, some guys struggling, maybe I'm even struggling, and you know, my guys kind of give me a holler and tell me, "Come on, pick it up," you know, and just helping me out, helping me get up that hill. So that's one thing I appreciate. And New Mexico actually just posted some on their story that they just ran up the dunes, and it's day one, dude. I'm like, hey, y'all boys have fun over there. I'm gonna stay over here. Yeah, you boys have fun over there on those dunes, but that's not for me right now. So, yeah.
Something I love asking guys as they head toward the next level is about guys they've watched before and guys that, you know, they love taking things potentially from their game and adding it to their own. So when it comes to you, who's someone you would love to have as that mentor figure at the next level? And if not a mentor figure, what's a part of a game from another player that you would want to add to your own?
Miller. He's the GOAT, man. And I just love how he moves, and he's fast, and he's got good bend. So, you know, just learning how to, you know, maybe move my body just a little bit better with this speed, because sometimes I can find myself a little uncontrolled. And so, you know, I watched a little bit of Von Miller and just see how he kind of controls his speed and his bend and, you know, how he moves. And that's kind of one guy that I consider like a mentor if he could mentor me.
And before we get you out of here, man, just let everybody know where they can find you on your social media.
My social media is KXYNXWBY. So I just replaced the E's with the X's. It's Key Newbie though.
That was supposed to go right back to the side scroll. I guess that didn't happen, but that was Keyshawn James Newby from New Mexico, played with the Lobos. He now is with the Philadelphia Eagles, actually got drafted in the 7th round. Shout out to him, a little bit of an undersized edge, but he's no slouch in the run game either. Very happy to see him. And I'm sorry, I keep messing with my lighting. It's because my lighting is going crazy. It's making this side of my face look like it's like morphed into some stuff, but it's not. I promise. The lighting's just really bad. I don't know what's going on here. But with that said, it looks like this part of my face just like doesn't exist for some reason. It's like blended in, I guess. I don't know. At least that's what it looks on mine. Maybe it doesn't look like that on you guys. But if you're listening to the audio podcast, you don't see any of this. So you're just like, what is this guy talking about? I apologize. But that was Keyshawn James. We did decide to do the double interview because I am actually going to have a guest on a little bit later than normal. Usually the show only runs from about 8 to 10. But we have Maddy Hudak, sideline reporter from Tulane, coming on at the top of the hour. She's going to be on in a few minutes. We're going to talk some Tulane football. But because she is coming on the show, we decided we're going to run it a little bit longer. If you got we did just have Greg Nejmeh as well, the president of Accelerate Sports Ventures. He runs a NIL firm and consulting firm, helping universities as big of the P4s from Penn State to Utah, and he's even got a school in my own backyard working with Siena. So I appreciate him coming on the show. And actually, we do have Maddy on in the green room now. Maddy, are you good to go? Okay. And she is a sideline reporter for the Tulane Green Wave. She also works at Roundtable Sports, assistant national editor in chief. This is Maddy Hudak. Maddy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I always like to ask everybody who comes on, because maybe they're not familiar with you, like what got you into the world of sports and journalism?
Yeah, well, the pandemic, to be honest with you, I actually graduated from college, went into psych, did some time in the law, got laid off during the pandemic, and had been writing about the New Orleans Saints at the time. And so I just kind of used that opportunity to see if that was something I wanted to do. Ended up moving it here in March of 2021, about 6 months later. Got the sideline reporting job at Tulane in July. So just a few months after that. And then I've just kind of hunkered down ever since in that industry.
Yeah, you've been doing an awesome job. I got to see you kind of go from that and blowing up. It's been fantastic. So I did want to ask you, obviously, Tulane's got a new coach, but, you know, Jon Sumrall was fantastic during his time there. So can you just talk about your reaction when Sumrall left and the legacy that he's left behind at Tulane?
Yeah, I've been really lucky now, like to go from Willie Fritz to Jon Sumrall in the college football setting, see all that I've seen and just see how much he was able to really just take Tulane, take what Willie Fritz built and just put the gas pedal on and take it to new heights, just the way that the players really bought in. And I think what was really important when he came here too was the fact that he was previously a defensive coordinator at Tulane back in 2013, which is when I went to school there, when football was very, very different at Tulane. And so knowing like what not to do and what it's like when there isn't this whole support with the university and everyone really behind it. And then again, nothing changed for Tulane to keep going to American Conference Championships, win that one, and then end up going to the college football playoff. It's about as good of a send-off from a former coach as you could ask for. But speaking of that former experience, that's something that I really keep in mind for Will Hall too, being that he was the offensive coordinator at Tulane back in the 2020 season. He had one of the best offenses that Tulane's ever had in terms of a pass offense. So that I think is something important, when you look at what guys are able to do at Tulane. I think both of those coaches showed that in their previous stops there, they were able to find a lot of success without NIL and all of that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I was going to mention Will Hall because he was the OC there, I think, from what, that 1920 season, and now he's the head guy there. So what have been your early impressions of him now that he is the head coach?
He's awesome to watch in spring practice. He's the most active coach I've seen, just playing linebacker, playing defensive end, literally running across the field the entire time. And the way that the guys really respond to him, we asked a ton of guys in post media each week during spring camp, what was either your reason for coming to Tulane or sticking around at Tulane? Every offensive guy immediately Will Hall. And so to hear that, I think really says a lot. It's been really fascinating because you look at Willie Fritz, you look at Coach Sumrall, they were both defensive special teams type guys, kind of those program builders. And so you kind of get this offensive jolt in there that's been, really exciting to watch. I think the skill players that they brought in on offense, you look at a guy like Destin Hill from LSU, and then you look at some of the homegrown guys that they have, having Oliver Mitchell and Antoine Parham, both of them, all three of those guys are big guys. That's something I've noticed is you look at what I think Will Hall had to recruit in the past when he had his first stop here. And at that time, Tulane was kind of looking for those undersized diamonds in the rough. They're not really having to do that anymore. And then you also look at the running back room. That really sticks out to me. We said a few times through spring camp, you could have two guys in this room have season-ending injuries and still be okay. And so to be able to make that much of an impact in the transfer portal at those two positions especially, it's been really exciting to watch him kind of take form already.
Yeah, it's fascinating seeing Tulane just continue to be, the continuity there has been great, right? They've been a powerhouse in the American now. I mean, they just won the conference championship, and obviously with the juice that they're having on the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be fantastic to see. Has there been anybody, I don't know, defensive that's kind of stuck out to you this spring as well?
Yeah, so I always say you almost kind of take defense for granted a lot of the time, especially when I think that side of the ball, and I saw USA Today did some returning snaps percentage thing for each team, and defense definitely has the edge there for Tulane, and you also have a little of the continuity given that Taylor Polk, our linebackers coach last year, still now coaching that unit, but is also the defensive coordinator, and I think that played a big role in the guys really sticking around. I think someone to watch just as a newcomer, Macho Stevenson, really exciting to watch at that cornerback spot. You look at where he came from at Texas Tech. The co-defensive coordinators there are Sheil Wood and Rob Green. Sheil Wood was the defensive coordinator at Tulane in 2023 and implemented the system that they're still using today. Rob Green was on his staff as a safeties coach. And so that was a guy that, I've heard that they said it kind of sucks that he got away, but good to get a change of scenery. But you can't teach length. And just seeing a guy out there at the cornerback role with just really rangy arms and great size, it's been really exciting to kind of watch him start to find himself throughout these early days of camp as well.
Right. And so, I mean, I mentioned a little before, obviously they conference champions this past year, but new head coach, new expectations, maybe. What are your expectations for the Green Wave entering 2026?
I think the expectations for them, it is what they've said at this point, which is kind of conference championship or bust in a way. You've gone the last 4 years, you've won 2 out of those 4, and you were the team that went to the college football playoff and then importantly got that massive payout from the college football playoff. And so I think if you squander that money, it's hard to think, how do you kind of go past that? But like you said before, it's been kind of fun to just watch Tulane just decide to be good at football, especially, when I went there. The Superdome, they built Yeoman Stadium while I was still there. And so it's been kind of cool to watch how much that has really made a difference, because when there was no team to watch and they were in an 80,000 person Superdome, even if we were a great team, it was still a sad environment in there. And so I think getting Yeoman and just building all these little blocks, but you have the fan base behind you. There's a student section now that actually shows up, stays for games, and understands that they're, supposed to make noise on third down, and those kind of things you laugh about. But when you have no football culture at a program, you don't realize how many of those things go to the wayside. I remember Sumrall said when Yeoman Stadium first opened, he was still on staff. And at that time, we had our sideline on the opposite side of where the fans were running on, or where our fans were. So he's like, those are the little things that show that a program doesn't really care about football, and that's all different now. And so I think now you're living in the age of that's all different now, and there's no reason not to keep the gas pedal running. I think you've seen, again, the money it brings in, the applications it brings in. At this point, football is a drawing point, and I think Tulane has kind of finally recognized that and still expect again to run the American.
Yeah, that's got to be kind of insane, right? Because I just want to get your perspective, because you said you went to school when the program wasn't good, and now it is good. So how has that been like for you specifically? Because now that you work with a program, like that must be something, right?
Yeah. I mean, my first year was the 2-10 season. And to be honest with you, that's more of what I expected than these past, all of the years that have followed. Because, yeah, I mean, my homecoming game, I think it was like 10-3, and the only touchdown scored was a pick six. Like, it was just so bad. And that was a loss for Tulane, by the way. It was not a 10-3 win. Like, there was just no one was going to games. There was, when Yeoman first opened, sure, people tailgated on the quad and then went to the booth. Like, they just didn't bother actually showing up to the football game. And I remember, like, I was deciding between a few colleges, Miami being one of them, and just ultimately deciding I was giving up my college football experience to go to Tulane because the other things kind of outweighed that. And so to almost get this little retroactive, yes, I am working, but also I went here, and it's just cool to see what the stadium was like when I was one of 5 people sitting in it for my senior year homecoming in the pouring rain, and to see it be totally filled out that first American Conference Championship game back in 2022 now, like that was definitely a sight for sore eyes.
Yeah, and now they're one of the main reasons the American is, given the prestige that it's given in the NCAA. So that's fantastic to see. But Maddy, I do thank you so much for coming on. But before we get you out of here, can you just let everybody know where they can find you on your social media and what do you have coming up?
Sure, great. Thank you. I'm always on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it these days, at Maddy Hudak _94. And as you brought up before, I do a lot of coverage at Roundtable, including Tulane on Roundtable, but then also doing some national coverage as national editor-in-chief. That's all at Roundtable Sports, but I post all those links on my Twitter most of the time anyways.
Awesome, Maddy. Thank you so much for coming on. I truly appreciate you.
Great. Thank you. This was great.
Awesome. That was Maddy Hudak. You can follow her at Maddy Hudak, her last name, MADDYHUDAK _94 on X/Twitter. Fantastic follow if you're into Tulane sports, and she's just a great reporter in and of itself. Make sure you guys give her a follow. She also works at Roundtable as the assistant national editor in chief. But with that, I mean, that just about wraps it up. This was a great show. We talked 2014 playoffs. We talked some tampering stuff. We talk about the probationary period for FCS schools no longer being a thing. That could be great for Sacramento State. Who knows? Maybe North Dakota State. Maybe one of them gets into a bowl game or a potential playoff. Far shot, but who knows? We've seen crazier things happen. We also had Greg Nejmeh come in from Accelerated Sports Ventures, talking about NIL consulting and things of that nature, helping schools from the P4 to even below G6 and even in my own backyard in Siena. And then we just had Maddy Hudak on, sideline reporter for the Tulane Green Wave, talking about Jon Sumrall, the impact he left with the sport, what fans can expect with Will Hall, the differences he's made, and some standout players in spring practice. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. It's been a fantastic episode. Make sure to click that like button. It's completely free to do so. And if you're watching on any of your favorite social media platforms, make sure to share it to your friends and family. If they love college football, they'll love this show. Live show, leave a comment. If this show ends and you want to leave a comment, you're watching after the fact, give me 48 hours. I'll make sure to get back to you. And with that said, I mean, I think that just about wraps it up. Stay tuned for Monday's episode. We'll have another great episode. We might see some different stuff, some little segments going on in the show. I'm going to be cooking some stuff up on the weekend, but I appreciate everybody taking the time out to listen, and I hope to see you guys on Monday. And with that, I am out of here.